Welcome back to the Michael Jordan episode of the B3Students podcast, because we have confirmed that Michael Jordan is number 23, not 24. Dylan, why don't you tell them about that?
I didn't think Michael Jordan's number was 23.
I don't know what is wrong with this kid, but hey guys, we're glad that you're back. Pastor Andrew here, Dylan here. We're talking about trials. We're talking about the struggle. When the struggle gets real, when it's really real, and you know it's real, right? I mean, we are on this topic of holiness. And last Sunday night, Dylan had the opportunity to get up there and talk to us a little bit about the benefits of trials. So Dylan, just summary for those that maybe missed it or fell asleep, or
Hopefully nobody fell asleep.
Hopefully nobody fell
I
asleep.
don't think nobody did.
But give us a little snapshot. What was the benefit of trials? Talk about it for us.
Well, the benefit of trials is that there's something on the other side of them, that God works in us and through us through them. It may not always feel good, and it may make us frustrated, and may even just point the finger to other people, ourselves, and even blame God when really we shouldn't, but we can feel that way.
Yeah.
But the benefit of trials is that it grows our faith, it makes us stronger, it develops us, it brings us closer to Him. And the second benefit is the crown of life that eventually we will have. Eventually, we will see Jesus face to face.
Does that mean we're going to be in heaven with bling on our head, or no?
I don't
No,
know.
the answer to that is no. That's not what that means. Anyway, go ahead.
No, but I mean that would be cool. But no, we don't. But we will spend eternity with Jesus, and that's what the kind of life means. And it's the joy that lies ahead, and the joy we can have joy in the midst of trials because of what God does in the middle of it. And He does a lot of good work in the middle of the trial. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing. I think we're so quick, and Dilly, I don't know. You tell me when we get in a deep struggle, and we've talked about trials a lot, but now let's be honest. As teenagers, it feels like every day's a trial sometimes. And even as adults, like, I think we can vouch for this, it's still tough. Like, just because you think, oh, I don't have to go to school anymore, I don't have to do this anymore, it's like, no, you got responsibilities, you got taxes to pay, you got things to do, you know what I'm saying? Responsibilities that kind of add up, and so you feel like you're going through. Now, I don't want to minimize a trial, but a trial is what? How would you define a trial before I even go there?
Well, a trial can come in many different ways.
Thank you.
I mean, no matter the size of it, whether you consider it small or big, I don't think you should compare your trial to somebody else's trial. That's kind of dangerous to do.
Yeah.
So a trial can come in many ways. If it's something that happened at your job, school, work, something like that, or something that you're just dealing with on the inside. Trials can happen in many forms. It's just how you approach it, how you see it, how you view it, that matters.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the hesitation sometimes is, I think that, I don't want to go and talk to somebody, or even to God. I've literally had conversations with students, and they say, I don't want to go to God with this because it's so minimal. What? Yeah. Like, where do you get that from? Like, don't think that something that you're going through, if it may not be on the level of maybe suicide, it may not be on the level of, I don't know, what's another trial? What's another?
Well, something just small.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, go to God with those things. Pray about those things. Nothing, God's not going to, when we pray, He's not going to be like, man, get over that. Like, well, actually, in some cases, maybe He would. I don't know. I've actually gotten that vibe every now and then and say, don't worry about that. Like, I got that covered, But one of the things that, not that I actively hear audibly from God, I want to be clear on that. I just through the reading of His Word and His Spirit. But one of the things that I think teenagers can do is really just get to the point where they're like, man, my trial, what I'm going through, this struggle is nothing compared to what so-and-so is going through. Don't do that. That's not what that is. If you're going through something, then it's obviously the most important thing that you've got going on right now. I think that's one way you need to look at it. And so don't be afraid to go to God with those things. God is not too busy to listen to our prayers. You will not find it anywhere in the Bible where God's like, oh, that's not important, don't come to me with that. No, go to Him. And I think the hesitation sometimes is to go the other direction because we feel like maybe what we're going through is not as significant as what somebody else may go through.
Yeah, I was reading where David was, when he was in the cave, and he was pouring out his complaint to God. And he was being real, and he was pouring out his complaint. So definitely go to God in prayer and be honest with Him. and even be honest with the people around you so they can be there for you. And
Yeah.
So we're all going through a trial in some way, whether the size is big or small. So definitely approach people in a loving way too. And even approach ourselves in a loving way. And it will help us and others go when we're going through something.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And I like what you said too about the crown of life. That was kind of the second part of the message. We'll receive the crown of life, that our ultimate reward in this life is eternity with God, with Christ in heaven. We know that as we live our life in this world, it's difficult. What we believe and believing in the Bible, believing in the resurrection of Christ and the gospel and all that, what that means is that's countercultural. So, this world, we talked about this in our series when we went through angels and demons and all that kind of stuff. Like, Satan is ruling in this world, but God still holds that authority over him. And so, Satan is going to, and his demon buddies are going to attack you. They're going to come at you. But this, again, and I say this time and time again, this temporary suffering that we face is nothing compared to the glory that we're going to see later on whenever we are with Christ in heaven. And so really the reality is, I like what you said, that it helps us with trials. Really, when we go through them, we should view them as a way to grow our faith, not run the other direction. And I think the hesitation sometimes is to run the other direction, because a lot of people buy into this what I call this false theology of, well, I said the prayer, I'm good, so my life is therefore supposed to be good. Well, not really. If you look at the Bible, when you became a Christian, you were actually pretty much signing a death sentence, particularly back in the day, because a lot of Christians were being persecuted. In some countries today, we see that. But we also know that here in America, while we may not be necessarily as intensely persecuted as others, we know that when we go through difficult situations, when we come to faith in Christ, we know that we are going to continue to face difficult things. It's the thing that changes is our perspective. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. Your perspective on what it may look like and what it can lead to.
Yeah.
If you see it as a good thing, then you can approach it in a good way, and you can not even necessarily even just pray away all the conflicts and trials. You can even pray for them, maybe in a way, because you would know that there's benefit to it, and there's a good thing that comes out of them.
Right.
It's your approach that matters.
Yeah, and the testing of our faith produces endurance. You'll find that there in James, and I know you talked about that as well. It helps us to endure. So when we're going through situations now, we talked about this before, I'll say it again until I'm black and blue in the face. We're either going into a trial, we're either in a trial, or we're coming out of one. Like, that is the reality of life. And so what we need to understand is that maybe the trial that we're going through now is preparing us for what may be another difficult trial down the road. And how we react to that now, I always tell students, is try to take note. How do you see God within the situation and within the trial that you're facing? How do you view your how do you view that situation in light of what God's really just teaching you, is what I'm trying to say. But that helps us, and I think that's where that endurance comes from.
Yeah, so like you can say, like, trials are like a test that can help us, and that can produce patience for the next one, and produce faith to build for the next one. And it helps us, and the more tests we go through, the bigger our faith gets.
Right.
And the dependency on Him and the trust builds up, and through the test we're growing, and we're being taught something.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the deal, guys. The reason why we're talking about why Dylan, and in this series, because this is still part of our holiness series, why we wanted Dylan to talk about this is because, one, it's something that we all need. We all need to find that encouragement to know that, you know what, just because I'm going through a trial, that doesn't mean that God's abandoned me. God meets us in those moments. He meets us in those trials, but we really need to just take notice. Are we in that trial, are we growing closer to Him, or are we trying to drift away from Him? My prayer is that you're growing closer to Him. But one of the things that we see in holiness is that if we're going to live holy lives, how we react to trials, how we view trials, struggles, and situations whenever it comes into our life, we want that to look more and more like Christ each time we face one, or every time that we face one. And so I would just encourage you to think about that as you're going through a difficult situation. I would encourage you, be more intentional about your faith in those moments, and then take note at the end of when you come out of it and you look back and you say, man, God did have my back in that. Like, He was with me in that. Remember that, because down the road when another trial comes, we want to look back at those, what I call little spiritual markers, right? You look at those spiritual markers, because going through a trial is like kind of going through a valley. Like, you start out and everything's good, and then the trial starts, and then you feel like you're like this right here. But then all of a sudden, at some point, things will turn back, and one way or another. It may not be the way that we want it to, but one way or another, it does get better, and things do. So I want to just encourage you that way. But again, the idea here behind holiness is if we're called to be holy people, if we're called to be set apart, when we're in those difficult moments, we also want to live set apart lives in those moments. We want to be able to point people to Christ when we're even going through difficult situations, or to help other people grow closer to Christ as a result of a difficult situation. So it's really important, I think.
Yeah, and learn to be a student, and learn to be a learner, and even appreciate the trial when you're in it.
Is the word disciple?
That's a good one.
Disciple? When you're in it? Yeah, go ahead. Anyway, that was good.
Yeah, learn to be a disciple that makes disciples in the trial.
A lifelong learner is a disciple.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and definitely. So just learn to approach it, and approach the trial that it has purpose. And when you see it like that, your viewpoint changes.
So Dylan, last question before we get out of here. What is one thing that you would say to somebody that's going through a difficult situation? How would you encourage them in some way, shape, or form, based on kind of what we talked about with, the benefit of trials?
What you're going through has purpose,
and
it's worth going through.
All right, there you go. What you're going through has purpose, and it's worth going through as long as we're growing closer to Christ. I think I would add to that. So, all right, guys, we'll check y'all next time. Like, comment, subscribe. You know what to do, and we'll see y'all at some point.